Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Idaho Business Podcast. I'm here with my good friend and professional Jackson Wood. He is portfolio manager and advisor. He's also been and has been and currently is fractional CFO with many different companies, including some tech companies. And this guy, he's a contributor for CoinDesk. You know, you can name it. This guy is doing it in the financial world. The guy is brilliant. He also has a podcast, Mailbox Money, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. And you know, he lives here in Pocatello, Idaho. Believe it or not, he's also been you've been on CNBC, name a few networks. You've been on Australian TV. You've been on a bunch of different things like that, right?
You're setting me up to completely stumble over my words here. My resume. You highlighted everything. Yeah.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, he's here today, and we're gonna enjoy talking with him. We're gonna talk about some cash management. You know, we talked a lot about running businesses and being, you know, just strategically smart about knowing your numbers. But now we're really gonna just dive into cash management of like, okay, we know your numbers, we know we're profitable, but what do we do now with the profits to be, you know, fully vested in understanding in running a profitable and good functioning company. But before we get too deep into that, I want to say that we are sponsored by Health West. These guys are amazing. So if you guys have any medical concerns, go over there to one of their locations located throughout Idaho. And they have 7 or 8 locations within even Pocatello. So give them a holler. Jackson, again, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on with business and cash management. I know, you know, from personal history, you know, sometimes, you know, younger professionals or even older professionals, they're getting into their businesses and maybe they've taken a crash course with Dave Ramsey, or, you know, they've had some financial wisdom imparted on them by that manner. And in their head, they're like, okay, I got to give a name to every dollar. And I've got to be really vigilant on everything that comes into my business. But does that always work when you're trying to run a business?
You know, it's a good question. So Dave Ramsey, I've learned a lot from him, and I respect what he's done. And I think that his approach is fantastic for personal finances. I think budgeting and knowing where your money is and how much is coming in and assigning a purpose to each dollar makes a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. And I like the approach of, you know, paying down your debts and, you know, keeping minimal cash in the account because you're being so aggressive with your debt pay down and with your investment and with building an emergency fund or, you know, whatever it is, saving up money for a down payment. When it comes to running a business, it's not 100% of the time that the advice that works on the personal side works on the business side, right? There's a lot of different characteristics to businesses that we need to understand, and then you can build a cash management plan and a cash flow plan. So a lot of the time in businesses, especially if you're coming from that very conservative, eliminate debt position on the personal side, a lot of the time it makes more sense to think in longer terms and build your cash flow, you know, on like an annual basis or even on a 2 or 3 year basis, and understand when is the optimal time to pay down debts, when you need perhaps to carry some debt, what type of debt you need to carry. You know, carrying responsible debt from a business can help maximize your business valuation. And so, you know, some of the principles from Personal Finance 101 apply to Business Finance 101. But if you just point blank, just move everything that you've learned personally into your business, sometimes it can create issues. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I think is most important to understand with businesses is kind of the cyclicality of your revenue and then your cost of running the business, right? So the first place I would start when you're running a business is just getting a very clear picture on an annual basis of how the cash flows work, right? A lot of businesses are seasonal, so they'll have better revenue in the summer months, right? Or they'll have better revenue near Christmas time if they're a retail driven business. There may be contracts that pay out in lump sums throughout the year because you finish a large project. And so understanding the flow of the money coming in is really the first place to start. And then that will kind of clue you in on keeping cash reserves. How aggressive can we pay down the debt? Can we make the normal payments on our debt, each month and then a lump sum at the end of the year? There's a lot of different components there, but it's a lot different from a cash flow perspective when you analyze a business compared to analyzing your personal finances. You have a job, you get paid. Yeah. That's good, right? That's kind of how it works with especially if you're an employee of a company. So that's where I'd kind of first start. I do think the approach of maintaining some conservatism or being cautious with money, especially if you're running a business and you have employees who depend on you, I think that makes a lot of sense. But it does take some tailoring and some customization to get a perfect cash flow plan built for a business.
Mm-hmm. Now, depending on what you're doing invoicing wise, if you're offering a net 30 or if you're usually getting paid a net 45 or net even 90, does it, that I'm guessing that also affects of how much cash you should have on hand at any given time.
Absolutely. I mean, if you let's say you're net 45 or net 90, you're not getting paid for the business until a quarter after you've done the work, right? But think about everything that's happening during that quarter, that you have to pay for before the money comes in. Mm-hmm. You've got payroll, you've got insurance, you've got debt servicing, you've got taxes, you've got any sort of retirement contributions that the business is making. And so if you're really tight on your cash because you're deploying, let's say, bump that back again, right? So you pay everybody upfront, you're very aggressive, your cash flow comes in, net 90 after you do the job or whatever. And then you deploy that cash right away to pay down debts aggressively, to wipe out, lines of credit or whatever it is. Now you're in this cash position that's tight and you've got payroll to make, and you're waiting another 90 days, calling your, accounts payable and you're like, or receivable, like, can I get the check early? Can you send the money over? How about half now? And then discount the second half. You just get into these goofy positions. And so understanding the cadence of ins and outs of your cash makes a lot of sense. And then that's where cash management, protecting the cash, what's happened recently with banking crisis and this FDIC insurance, if you're a larger business and you're dealing with more money than $250,000, now you have to understand where to park the money. You need to know money markets over savings accounts. You need to understand liquidity. Is the money that you have insured? There was a stat that said over 93% of the deposits with Silicon Valley Bank were balances larger than $250,000, which meant that had the Federal Reserve not given this line of credit to the banks, that money would have been wiped out. And so now that's a conversation I haven't had for a decade, but now it's just understanding we know we need to keep the cash in our account because we have random intervals of cash flow and accounts payable and payroll and all that. But now where do I keep that money? How do I keep it safe? How do I guard it? I call that money your moat, your business moat, right? You need to make sure that you have a moat around your company before you decide to be aggressive with reinvestments, with paying down debt, with paying out partner distributions or taking extra K1. I mean, I know every business owner loves when they get their dividend from their business, but you have to understand the optimal timing of when to do that to protect the longevity of the business.
Like it. Well, let's pretend, we got, I'm sure many different people that are listening that are like, okay, I've already got my my cash reserves in place, my moat. And then I'm sure there's some people thinking, you know what, that this sounds amazing, having this moat in place. I don't have my moat in place. I'm utilizing my, my line of credit quite a bit. I'm dipping in, paying off, dipping in, paying off. How do I start getting that moat, developed? What's kind of is there a nice little, formula that we can put in place here?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what I like to do is look at, depending on the cadence of when you run your business, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, but you'll understand once you look at what's coming in, what has to go out, you'll see what your surplus is at the end of that quarter or month or, whatever schedule you're on, right? when you look at that surplus, like that's the profit of the business. So how do you decide to allocate that? Where do you put that? And then you have to go through kind of the order of operations or what's most important to you. So if you have a moat and you have plenty of cash reserves and that's allocated correctly, that's safe, in guaranteed insured deposits, you don't need to fill that up. Then you're looking at, okay, do I need to pay down debts more aggressively? If so, and I would like that idea, knock out your debts, understand what the interest rates are. A lot of businesses carry credit cards. A lot of businesses carry lines of credit. Some businesses have very low rate, guaranteed lines of credit that there'd be no rush to pay off. But it's just about building an order of operations or an order of importance on that debt side, right? Understanding what you want to pay off and how fast you want to pay it off and what paying that off will do for the business in the long run, right? Then you can look at reinvestments. So, you might have an opportunity to expand your business and to grow it. So is there an acquisition that's happening? Is there some sort of like construction, expansion that will increase the surface area of your business that will bring more revenue? Is there the chance to hire new employees or a marketing team? Whatever that is, right? You have to kind of build that and look at what the ROI is going to be on business development and growth through acquisitions or whatever it is, mergers, maybe whatever. When you've got those two and it's a battle there, what I like to look at simply is the ROI, right? So let's say that you're a business owner and you have the chance to expand and all of your calculations and your projections say, this is going to help my business grow 20%. So if I build this, you could assume your ROI is somewhere around 20%. Then you look at your debt and you've done a good job at managing your debt. You don't have any interest rates that are gouging you. Let's say it's financed at 8 or 9%. Now you have this battle in your mind as the business owner of, do I deploy money at this 20% target ROI, or do I deploy money at an 8% or a 9%? Because that's the way I think of debt. Any debt you pay down, you're automatically buying yourself future increase in cash flow. So should I pay down my debt? And as the business owner, and as maybe you have a board of directors, you get to decide the direction of the way that you deploy your money. But it all comes from looking at your surplus. And more simply put, I guess, if you don't have a surplus at the end of this period of money coming in and money going out, there's something wrong. Your cost of labor is too high. Your cost of goods sold is too high. You're, too leveraged. We need to shut something down. Maybe your employee base is too, your payroll, or it could be, this is the least fun one to think about as a business owner. Maybe the business owner's salary is too high and you're sabotaging the business just to kind of satisfy what you want to make out of your, for your income. So it's just really going through this entire practice and understanding, here's my surplus. With the surplus, I've decided what I want to do, pay down debt and invest. Now, how comfortable am I doing that? And what's the ratio of this extra cash flow that I put to either the debt service or the growth and the expansion? And if there's no growth opportunities and there's no debt, that's the fun part, I suppose, where it's like, oh, now the owner gets to take a special dividend or, whatever it is. But, if you're running a business and growing it and striving to have a bigger business one day, you're probably going to be within those two questions of, I need to expand, but I need to be leaner and more optimized.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's important. I was one of those guys included that, would struggle with cash flow here and there. And Jackson was one of those guys that stepped in and helped me see the light a little bit, to help me understand, tweak little things here and there and free some stuff up. And even though you're running a profitable business, understanding cash flow is necessary. So
sometimes especially if you're a conservative person, and I don't mean that politically at all. I just mean like you run your business conservatively. It can keep you up at night knowing that there's debt, right? Mm-hmm. And the Dave Ramsey approach, and I have no issues with Dave, but he says $1,000 in the bank and eat beans and rice until you've paid off your credit cards and built your emergency fund, right? For businesses, that might not work because you have to pay people, right? You have to pay taxes. And so sometimes it can be this uncomfortable conversation where you look at the debt and you want it gone so bad, it's just driving you crazy, but you don't have enough cash reserves. And so you're probably in the season at that point of, let's build cash reserves. I know I'm getting kicked in the teeth on the interest rate and the credit card, but that's temporary. Build my cash reserves, and then we attack the debt, or then we expand it. You might be driving down the street as a business owner saying, oh, I can put my shop there, or I can build this or buy this. And you see all these different opportunities to build and expand and you get excited. but for some reason your business credit card is maxed out, charging you 24%. Okay, now we know where we need to focus for the next 3 to 6 months and knock that out. And so it's really just a matter of understanding the picture, but it's with the filter of here's the cash flow in and out of my business. That's how you view it first, and then you look at the situation to build the plan.
I like it. I like it. Well, for those people that are, those listening to us now, I guess, what are the 3 top things to really just to get started? That you just the basic little steps that you would think, okay, if you feel like you just don't understand, the basics, and if you don't, and if you feel very illiterate, number one, you really need to come and see, you need to have number one, you need to have a good accountant. Number 2, you need to have someone good on your side, like a Jackson, to help you understand some stuff. But what are some very basic steps that they can just really put in their minds?
Yeah, good question. So I think about this a lot. You remember back in high school or college when you were walking home from class and you knew that you had hours of homework to do, and you just sat on the couch or went to the gym or hung out with your friends and you just delayed starting your homework or your project, or if you're at your house and you've got to fix the ceiling, you just think about it for a long time, but then you actually get started. And you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. It's actually kind of enjoyable. My headphones in and listen to music, crank out a homework or crank out projects. That's the biggest behavioral roadblock to this entire process. It's just get started. And what you need to do is you need to do like an overview or an examination, like a physical at a doctor, but on your business. You need to start looking at everything. So you need to look at your revenue, right? First off, you need to chart your revenue. You need to look at, I made this much money in January, February, through the end of December, so that you understand the picture of your business revenue. Then you need to look at your expenses. That's the next line down, right? And you need to understand, okay, we have these bills due, and you just need to go through the money flow and the operations of your business, because as you're the CEO and the owner of the business, it's your responsibility to understand what's coming in, what's going out, where it's coming from, where it's going. And that will get you to that surplus, right? That extra cash, free cash flow from the business perspective, or your net operating income. That's where the magic happens. That's where you make the incremental change. Responsible and practical and like emotional use of that money is what it will either crush the business, put you out of business, or it grow your business into what it should become, right? And so it's just a matter of kind of doing that overview. And then once you have a picture and a roadmap of what your business looks like, then you can talk about bringing professionals in to help you, right? So an accountant is going to say, we can do these things to optimize what you keep at the end of the day, right? A CFO, a fractional CFO, or a finance person is going to say, okay, here's the picture of your debt. Here's a picture of your cash flow. Here's how we can tweak and optimize and change some things. But what I always remind people is that the CEO or the founder sits on top of that, right? As the visionary or the growth expert or the face of the business. And so I think of building a team, whether it's full-time in-house or if it's fractional or, whatever, of those people's responsibilities are to help you as the CEO know to execute and make the decision. And you might be savvy and you might be able to do it on your own and look at it. But really the first place to start is just do it, right? Like just do it. It's like, think about, homework. I know that's a dumb example, but it makes sense. Like you always would do your homework and realize, oh, well, I didn't need to dread this for the last 9 hours. It took me 20 minutes, right? And then documenting this all through. And you can use Excel, you can use a yellow pad. You don't have to be fancy with any of this, but you just need to understand what's going on. That's why the doctor gives you a physical every year, because he checks your heart, he checks your lungs, he checks your skin, your eyes, your ears, everything. So that if there is a problem, you can say, oh, we looked at the whole picture, but it turns out you might have high blood pressure. Now we know how to fix that, but we wouldn't have known to fix that unless we had scanned you from head to toe, right? That's what you need to do on the business side.
I like that. And then you can also see, as you're doing this examination of your business, you can also do the add backs of like, you know what, excuse me, my cash flow has been poor, but maybe it's because I've been offering my customers discounts all these different months because I've been asking them to pay early, and I've been giving them discounts. And that's what, every time I give them discount, that's money out of my pocket. That's profits out of my pocket. So adding those back in, go ahead.
And they only had to pay early because I didn't have cash reserves,
Exactly.
because I hadn't done my planning correctly, because I had to make my credit card payment or my truck payment or the fleet auto payments or whatever, my quarterly tax payment. It really does. It really is just understanding the business, and every business is different. Every business is different. And, you as the CEO and the business owner, you're going to have the best insight into what's going on, but you're not going to understand that there's a problem until you see the numbers.
Yep. And I think, talking about truck payments and stuff, it's fun when you're owning your own business and you want to go buy something fun and fancy or big or jacked up, whatever, but then, especially when you're a small business and you're just starting out, but you want to have this big front on, and you're like, oh, I'm a business owner, I'm this big dude, or, I'm this fancy, business owner. And what you do though, is you saddle yourself with this debt immediately. And then instead of this business serving you, you become a servant to your business, and you literally, like, those payments, now you're literally just payment poor, and you have to be making certain sales every month to make sure even just those payments are made. So it's better to, like Jackson has said, be leaner and meaner at the beginning. And then when you get the sales and then you get more comfortable and that stuff comes along, then go enjoy yourself here and there. So
one thing that pops into my mind or makes me think about is, you ever heard the saying, don't let the tail wag the dog? Mm-hmm. Right. So especially on social media, a lot of people will talk about, if you buy a car, you get to depreciate the car and you get to write it as a tax write-off on your taxes. You're not going to pay tax on your payment or the miles you drive, right? That's true. However, the car or the truck still costs money, right? And so you're never going to save more on taxes than you have to spend to buy the thing you're buying. And down the road, you might be like frantically searching for places to deploy money because you have so much cash flow. But especially early on in business, don't let the idea of a tax deduction or some tax optimization strategy convince you to sink 50 grand of your capital into a depreciating truck just because you're going to get a tax benefit. You could take that 50 grand and buy more inventory or hire a marketing manager or pay down credit card debt or whatever. So there's a time and a place. I think about my dad, who runs a large construction company. They have a fleet of, I don't know if they're brand new, but they're nice work trucks, and, everything looks good. But when he started the business like 18 years ago, he ran it out of an old UPS box truck that their tools were loaded in, and the passenger seat was broken, and literally they sat on a plastic backyard patio chair as the passenger of the car with a seatbelt on it. And obviously there's mistakes and all these things made along the way, but you have to understand, like, what is the best use of the capital for the business in the moment that you're in at that point. It very well might be buying a F-350, but it might not be, right? And you can't let that tax angle, can't let the tail wag the dog.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a very good and valid point on that kind of thing. So,
there's all kinds of special tax benefits you can have as a business owner that I think we talked a little bit about on the first time I came on the podcast. Sorry, I hit the mic. You can buy the trucks and depreciate them and all that stuff, and you can all that, or you can just put money in retirement accounts.
There you go.
And own assets and also get the tax benefit as well. So yeah, I mean, it's really just about understanding where you are and then making the best decision for the business moving forward. And you might have different goals, right? One business owner might be like, I want to grow this to $3 million annual revenue, and I'm at 500K right now. That's my number one goal. Another business owner might be like, you know what? I've been in the business for 20 years. I want to optimize for my time. I want to figure out how I can take less of my time and put it into the business while maintaining the status quo of this revenue. Mm-hmm. Another person might be saying, look, I'm going to sell this, and I need to get everything in tip-top shape so that I get the highest valuation, so that someone comes in and happily buys this money or buys this business for a huge amount of money. Or it might be, hey, I've got a son or a partner that's going to be buying this from me. How do we structure the business? So the decisions aren't the same for everybody, but it's just understanding what decisions to make that will get you to ultimately what your goal as the business owner is.
Smart words, man. I like it. I think there's going to be some great value out of this episode for some people that are listening and need that advice for the cash flows, man. So I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, sure thing, man. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. So if you guys want to learn more from Jackson, obviously we're going to have him on the show more when he gets the time to come on. But follow him on his podcast, the Mailbox Money. You'll learn more about investing and all sorts of wealth management advice as well. So, Jackson, are you currently still taking on clients as well, or?
Yeah. Yep. So we work for families and then we work for businesses. So we're excited for the right partner to come around. Okay. We're in this for the long haul, so we want to, build relationships that last decades. Okay. With the families and the businesses that we work for and that we consider partners of our firm. So yeah, anybody that wants, to reach out, happy to answer any questions, jump on the phone, kind of go from there. So we work nationwide, but headquartered here in Idaho.
Cool. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
To shoot me an email. My email is jackson@freedomdaysolutions.com.
Perfect. All right, man. I appreciate you. And as always, those that are listening, just stay out there, stay grateful, stay positive, and go out there and serve someone and just, be happy. And until next time, go out there and just enjoy your life. Adios.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.